He didn't think I would actually do it. That was his first mistake. He was 44 years old, senior vice president at a regional logistics company in Columbus, Ohio. He wore pressed shirts to work every day. He coached his nephew's little league team on weekends. When we met at a friend's birthday party, he held the door open for 3 people behind him and tipped the bartender 20% on a tab he split with strangers. I noticed those things. I always noticed those things. I was 28. I had just finished my second year of teaching middle school science in Westerville, and I was the kind of tired that only other teachers understand. The kind where you come home and sit in your car for 10 minutes before you can move. My friends were getting married, having babies, buying houses in suburbs with good school districts. I was grading quizzes about the water cycle at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. We dated for 7 months. It wasn't serious, but it wasn't nothing either. He cooked dinner sometimes. We went to a Reds game in Cincinnati. He had a dry sense of humor that made me laugh in a way I hadn't in a while. His name was, I'll call him what he was, my son's father. That's the only title that matters now. I found out I was pregnant in November. I was alone in my bathroom, and the test window showed 2 lines before I even finished counting to 30. I sat on the edge of the tub for a long time. I wasn't scared exactly. It was more like the feeling you get when you're driving and you realize you've missed your exit by 20 miles. Not a disaster. Just a long way back. I told him the following Sunday. We met for coffee near his apartment in Dublin. I brought the test in my coat pocket, which I realize now was a strange thing to do, but I needed something concrete to hold on to. I told him straight, no preamble, no cushioning. I was pregnant, about 6 weeks along. He put down his coffee cup very carefully, the way you set something down when you're trying not to show your hands are shaking. How certain are you? He asked. I took 3 tests, I said, and I saw my doctor yesterday. He looked out the window for a moment. The parking lot was half empty. It was a gray Sunday in November in central Ohio, which is to say it was the most colorless landscape imaginable, and he stared into it like it might offer him something. I want to be honest with you, he said finally. Those 6 words should have told me everything. He said he cared about me. He said he respected me. He said he respected me. He said he wasn't in a position in his life to become a father right now. He said he would of course support whatever decision I made, financially. He said the word options twice without specifying what he meant, which I think was deliberate. He said his family didn't need to be involved in this. His family. I hadn't even thought about his family yet. I was still thinking about my own. I told him I needed time to think. He seemed relieved by that. He paid for the coffees on the way out, which I found almost offensive. I spent 3 weeks thinking. I talked to my mother, who cried and then made me a casserole, which is her way of saying she loved me and had no idea what to say. I talked to my best friend, who sat with me for 4 hours on a Friday night and didn't offer a single opinion, just listened, which is one of the most generous things anyone has ever done for me. I prayed, though I'm not sure I've ever been certain who I'm praying to. And then I decided. I was keeping the baby. I told him over the phone. I didn't want to see his face. There was a pause that lasted long enough that I checked my screen to make sure the call hadn't dropped. I was afraid you'd say that, he said. Not, I understand. Not, okay, let's figure this out. I was afraid you'd say that, as if my decision was something that was happening to him. We agreed to talk more in person. He asked me to meet him at his apartment, which in hindsight I should have declined. There's something about being on someone else's ground that shifts the power before a word is spoken. When I got there, he was dressed like he was going to the office. I don't know why that detail stayed with me. It was a Saturday afternoon. He had on a button-down and slacks. He offered me water, and I said yes because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. He sat across from me at his kitchen table. He said he'd been thinking very carefully. He said he'd consulted with someone, he didn't say who, and that he wanted to make sure I was taken care of. He said he understood this was hard. He said he had a lot of respect for me. Then he slid a piece of paper across the table. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't typed up by a lawyer. Not yet, anyway. It was a handwritten number on a piece of notepaper from a hotel, the kind with a little logo at the top. $250,000. I want you to be okay, he said. I want you to have options. I can make sure you're set up. Your bills, your student loans, whatever you need. I can't do this, and I need you to understand that. I looked at the number for a moment. Then I looked at him. What exactly are you asking? I said. He looked uncomfortable. I'm asking you to consider your options. I've already considered them, I said. I'm having this baby. He leaned back. Then I'm asking you to consider raising this child without involving me, without involving my family. I'll give you the money. A clean start. I picked up the notepaper. I put it back down in front of him. No, I said. He stared at me. I'm not taking your money, I said, and I'm not agreeing to disappear. I'm having this baby, and when this baby is born, I'm going to establish paternity legally, and we're going to go through the court system like normal people. His expression shifted in a way I hadn't seen before. The politeness dropped, just for a second. You should think carefully about what that means, he said. My family has resources. This could get complicated. I'm a middle school science teacher, I said. Everything about my life is already complicated. I picked up my bag and left his apartment. In the elevator going down, I pressed the button for the lobby and then just stood there, breathing. My hands were completely steady. That surprised me. The next morning, I called a family law attorney. Her name was a name I'll always be grateful for, though I won't use it here. She had an office on the east side of Columbus, small and a little overfull with files, and she had the specific energy of someone who had heard every version of this story and never once stopped being angry on behalf of the person sitting across from her. She told me Ohio law was actually fairly clear. Paternity could be established before birth, through court petition in certain circumstances, and given that he had already attempted what she called an informal settlement, the piece of notepaper, we had documentation of his awareness and intent. She said in high-asset cases in Ohio, child support was calculated based on both parents' incomes, but with specific guidelines under the Ohio Child Support Worksheet. She said courts looked at the actual earnings of both parties, not a cap. She said she'd handled cases like this before. She told me to save every text, every voicemail, every piece of paper. I went home and screenshot everything. He texted me 3 days after I left his apartment. He said he hoped I had time to think. He said he wanted to revisit the conversation. He said he thought $250 was fair, but that he was open to discussion. I didn't respond. He called the following week. I let it go to voicemail. His voice on the message was measured and professional. He said he hoped I was well. He said he thought we could come to an agreement that worked for both of us. He said it would be better for everyone, including the child, to handle things privately. I sent the voicemail to my attorney. She filed a complaint to establish paternity and child support in Franklin County Family Court 2 days later. I don't know exactly what the process server looked like. I only know that my attorney told me papers would be served at his office because he had declined to provide a home address, and she was disinclined to wait. She told me later he called the office within the hour. He got an attorney too, of course. His attorney sent a letter within a week suggesting we pursue mediation. My attorney replied politely that we were happy to discuss support calculations and mediation once paternity was legally established. His attorney sent a second letter. It contained language about my motivations and referenced my finances in a way that was clearly meant to imply I was doing this for money. My attorney framed that letter and put it next to her desk. I'm not joking. She told me she does that. She said it reminded her why she did this work. I was 5 months along by the time we had our first formal mediation session. I wore a blazer that no longer fully buttoned, and I did not apologize for it. He walked in with his attorney and looked at my stomach and then looked away. His attorney was expensive looking in the way that Columbus expensive looks. Good shoes, a haircut that cost more than my car payment. The mediator was a retired family court judge named Nothing I'll Use Here, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a beaded chain and a voice like she'd spent 30 years being unimpressed by people who thought they could outmaneuver a courtroom. He offered $50,000 a year. His attorney presented it like it was generous. My attorney put Ohio's support worksheet on the table. Based on his verified income, which we had obtained through discovery, the calculated obligation was nearly 3 times that. His attorney said the worksheet was a starting point, not a ceiling. My attorney said the worksheet was the floor. The mediator looked at his attorney over her reading glasses. "Counselor," she said, "I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what the worksheet says." We did not reach an agreement that day. That was fine. We weren't there to reach an agreement. We were there to establish the parameters. The baby came in late March. I was in labor for 11 hours, and my mother held my hand for 9 of them. My best friend drove 2 hours from Cincinnati when she got my text at 3 in the morning and arrived just in time to stand in the doorway and cry while I delivered a boy. 6 pounds, 14 ounces, dark hair. A face that looked, in those first raw minutes, like no one I'd ever known. I named him what I named him. It was the name I picked at 7 years old for a future son I'd imagined, and it seemed wrong to change it because of how he arrived. I sent the birth certificate to my attorney by the end of the week. Postnatal DNA testing was completed at 8 weeks. The results were what we already knew they would be. His paternity was confirmed at 99.998%. I got a text from him the day after the results were filed. "I think we should talk," it said. "Please direct all communication to my attorney," I replied. We went back to court in June. His attorney tried several angles. He argued that his client's income was irregular due to bonuses and should be averaged differently. He argued that I had sufficient income as a teacher to offset the support calculation. He argued that his client intended to be involved in the child's life and therefore certain expenses should be reclassified. My attorney responded to each argument with the Ohio Revised Code sections that made them irrelevant. The judge, a different judge, a man in his 50s, who looked like he had 2 kids and a lawn he mowed on weekends, reviewed the worksheet, reviewed the income documentation, reviewed the asset disclosure that we had compelled through discovery, and issued a temporary support order while the final order was being drafted. The number was not $250,000 one time. It was a monthly figure that would last until my son turned 18, with an annual cost of living adjustment. When his attorney told him the number, I was told later, by my attorney, who heard it from the mediator, who had no obligation to tell me but did anyway, that he went very still. Not pale, exactly. Still. The way someone goes still when they realize the ground has moved. The final order was issued in August. It included the monthly support, a provision for medical and dental coverage through his employer's plan, a formula for splitting extracurricular and educational expenses, and a clause establishing a parenting schedule that his own attorney had pushed for. I think in hopes of reducing the support calculation. It did not reduce the support calculation. He has seen my son 4 times since the order was issued. Scheduled visits. He shows up on time, which I'll give him credit for. He brings things. Toys. Clothes that are slightly too big. My son doesn't ask about him yet. He's not 2. He asks about the dog at my mother's house and whether crackers count as a meal and why the sky is blue, and I answer every question because that's what I do. I'm a science teacher. I still teach. Same school, same classroom, same water cycle quizzes at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. The support doesn't make me rich. It makes me okay, which is exactly what I needed it to do. My son has a good pediatrician and new shoes when he needs them, and a bedroom that I painted myself the color of a sky that I told him was called Afternoon, which is a real paint color. I didn't make that up. Some people told me to take the money and move on. I understand why they said that. I understand the math of it, the logic, the path of least resistance. I don't blame anyone who has taken that path. I have not walked a mile in anyone else's choices, but here is what I know. The moment I let someone write a number on a piece of hotel notepaper and slide it across a table to make my child disappear, that was the moment I would have started teaching my son, before he was even born, that some people's existence is negotiable, that the powerful get to set the terms. That silence is the price of peace. I'm a science teacher. I believe in observable evidence. The observable evidence is this. My son is here. He is fed and warm and laughs at the dog. The ground moved, and I am still standing on it. That is not nothing. That is everything. I keep thinking about that piece of hotel notepaper, the logo at the top, the number written in blue ink, the way he slid it across the table like it was a reasonable thing to do, like a number could settle what a person is worth. I don't think he was a monster. That's the part that's actually hardest to explain. He coached his nephew's Little League team. He held doors open for strangers. He was capable of genuine kindness in the small, daily ways that make you trust someone. And then, when something real was asked of him, not even something extraordinary, just basic accountability, he reached for his checkbook instead of his conscience. That gap between who someone appears to be and what they actually do when the cost gets real. That's where I learned something I didn't expect to learn. What I learned was about myself. I used to think courage meant not being afraid. I was wrong. I was afraid every single day of that process. I was afraid in the elevator going down from his apartment. I was afraid the first time I sat across from my attorney and heard the words Franklin County Family Court. I was afraid in the mediation room when his attorney looked at my unbuttoned blazer like it was evidence of something. Fear was present for all of it. What mattered was that I didn't let the fear make my decisions for me. I made them myself, with the information I had, thinking as clearly as I could, and then I showed up anyway. That's the only version of strength I know how to trust anymore, not the absence of doubt, but the decision to move through it with your eyes open. There's a version of this story where I take the money. I've thought about her, that other version of me. She has paid off student loans. She has a cushion. She also has a son who will one day ask questions, and she'll have to decide what to tell him, or what not to. I couldn't live in that version, not because I'm noble, but because I'm a science teacher and I believe in what the evidence shows. The evidence showed me that his father knew he existed and chose a number over him. My son will know that too someday. But he'll also know that I didn't. The child support doesn't make me wealthy. It makes things okay, which is what I needed. More than the money, though, what I have is something I can actually stand on. A decision I made with a clear head, a straight spine, and the knowledge that I understood what I was doing and why. My attorney did her job brilliantly. The court did its job. But I had to be the one to walk through the door first. Nobody can do that part for you. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry. Honestly, not much. Anger takes up space I need for other things. My son's pediatrician appointments, lesson plans, the exact correct answer to why the sky is blue. What I feel more than anger is a kind of settled certainty. I did the right thing, not the easy thing, not the profitable thing in the short run, the right thing. And those two versions of right don't always overlap, but when they do, you feel it in your whole body. My son laughs at the dog. He asks if crackers count as dinner. He has a bedroom the color of an afternoon sky, and he sleeps in it safely, and that is the only outcome I was ever actually working toward. The ground moved. I am still standing on it.